So, hey everybody, so welcome to the FL Solidity team call. Today is March 24th, 2022. We're going into week 5 of March. So again, it's the final week, final turn-in of March. If you're new to the call, in terms of Family First Life, the week starts on Thursday and ends on Wednesday. So we're going into the final week. So for those of you, which is a lot of us on the call that have goals to hit, let's hit those goals and let's make a strong effort and a great dial day to day. But without further ado, we do have a very special guest on the call today. Somebody who every time I see her, she just good energy, positive vibes, and also she's growing as, from what I can tell, a person, but also she's growing in this business. So we have Ms. Kelly Delaney Somerville on the call with us today. Her team is on track to issue or to help about 750 families this month, which is really exciting because they're growing at a very rapid rate. So Kelly, how you doing today?
Hey Marissa, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Thank you so much for being on. I'm super excited to have you with us. So I've learned a lot from you, Kelly, even just in passing, talking at meetings and things like that. So thanks for being on. But just to kind of hit the call off, if you don't mind, just giving us an intro, who you are, where you came from, why FFL, and how long you've been with us.
All right. So, hey everybody. Hope everybody's having a great afternoon, great dial day if you're dialing today. I've been with FFL since I started in June 2019. So 2.5 years, and I came from another company. Of course, we can't say the name, but it was a company that only sold term insurance. And that's all they sold. To buy term and invest the difference was their motto. And I was a vice president. I was a regional vice president with them, and I was with them for 6.5 years. And Marissa, somebody, a friend of mine went to high school with, actually told me about FFL in October of 2018. And I was like, he's lying, because he got me on the phone with Frank, and he showed me some numbers, and I was like, there's no way, I'm like, they're lying. Like, there's no way these people are writing these kind of numbers personally, because where I came from, if you help as a team 20 families a month, you were like crushing it. So like, there's no way people are doing this in a week's time. So so I said no initially to Family First Life, and then some other things changed, and so things got worse with the company I was with. On top of not like issues with not making any money, in May of 2019, my father passed away, and he had high blood pressure and diabetes. And of course, if anybody's been in insurance for any period of time or been with FFL for any period of time, if you have somebody who's 66 years old with high blood pressure and diabetes, their term is not going to cover them, right? Insulin-dependent diabetes, right? So that's all that we offered at the other company. And in May 2019, as I'm a regional vice president of an insurance company, my father died with no life insurance. And it's something very, very wrong with that, right? Because I was told that whole life was bad, whole life doesn't make sense. So why would I, and I didn't know anything else about insurance. I listened to the people that went ahead of me, and I assumed that they were telling me the right thing. And now I know that me and my sisters could have had very easily, for very inexpensive, a $10,000 whole life policy. But here's the thing that makes it even worse. I was not even in position, because I was so broke with that other company, I was not even positioned to help my sister pay for any of the final expenses. Like I even told her, Marissa, when we were, because my father got cremated, and when it was time, I have 2 sisters. So we're getting 3 urns. And I told my sister that I would get my urn later, and it was $75. And my sister was like, no, I'll take care of it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how bad off I was. And this was in 2019, guys. So May 2019, I started Family First Life in June 2019. And I still didn't jump in right away, because I had been damaged from working with the other company. So I talked to a couple people about Family First Life, but really by January 2020 is when I realized that this is where I needed to be. And that's when we started building. So from 2019, not really like having maybe a couple people, 3 or 5 people with me now our organization, Family First Life Fury, has over 500 licensed agents.
In such a short time, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy how, that story, I didn't know that, so I love to hear people's stories about how they came in and out of an awful situation. I'm sure that you're able to carry that story and help so many more families ahead of you, right?
Absolutely.
And not only that, but it's also showing, like you said, kind of at your practice company, if you will, I have the same mindset of the whole, 20 families a month or a week as a team. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here we're like, oh, you did that in a week. That's cool. Like, like kudos, don't get me wrong, but we're not
Right.
like, oh, wow, you're the first person ever. So just looking at the differentiation of almost the mindset, but also what is the product, right? What do we need and why do we need it? And that really just kind of hit home for me. So I hear you, Cal, and even you think like, okay, that was 2019. Like,
yeah, not long ago.
Right? And now here you are crushing it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whole team behind you. So with that being said, I know when I lost my mom, I was, it was hard on me. I wasn't all, mentally there. People would, probably challenge that I'm not still. No, I'm kidding. But,
I don't think none of us are.
Exactly.
We were crazy enough to do this. This is not for the average person. So
That's right. That's right. So with that being said, how important is, mindset and confidence in this business? Is there anything that you do like daily, weekly, or to stay in the proper mindset or to make sure you're holding yourself confidently? And was this ever a challenge for you?
Heck yeah. Like when I came to Family First Life, number one, I was broke. Like literally, I was driving, and you say you never heard my story, but when I started Family First Life, I was living with my father when he died, when he passed away. And the guy that we were renting from, he's been friends with I'm gonna answer your question, but the guy that we were renting from was an old friend of my father. And after he died, I asked him and I was only paying $400 a month for rent. So that was my portion. My father was paying my rent up front, and I was paying him back $100 a week because I was driving DoorDash at the time. And that's all that I could afford, was paying him $100 a week. So I asked this friend of my father, if I could keep paying him $100 a week. He told me no. And this is like right after my father died. So here I am, my father passed away, and I got to go and find somewhere else to live. And then I rented a room for my girlfriend of mine, and I was paying her $100 a week, $400 a month, because I was renting I called it the blue room because it was blue, because it was her son's old room. And I was really sad at the time, right? Losing my father. I was in a business that I thought this was going to be my last stop, which was my practice company. And I was broken when I got here. You know what I'm saying? I was broken from, I didn't have any more dreams left in me. You know what I'm saying? Like I was scared, like, what if this doesn't work? You know what I'm saying? Because I had been beaten down mentally, emotionally, financially. Like I was in therapy right when I started FFL, and I still am. Like I say, we're all messed up. But I was going to therapy twice a week because I was in such a bad mental spot when I started. And so this is like what we do at Family First Life is all mental, right? And so none of it is, we're not doing any physical labor. It's this. And if we don't work on this, nothing is going to change, right? And so and this is real talk, like only 7% of people make it through their first year of insurance, right? That's how tough this industry is. We get paid a lot, but most people are not willing to go through what we went through to get to where we are, right? And so most people, like I lost a lot of stuff in the other company. I got evicted. Like I got two cars repossessed, as a matter of fact, right? So I had all these things happen. Most people would have been stopped. And trust me, there was times when I wanted to stop, but I knew, I don't know, something in me, like you said, Marissa, like I kept telling myself, and I was telling somebody the other day, and I don't know where it came from. I kept telling myself, everything that you're going through is not for you. It's so that you can help somebody else. And even though at that time I did not believe that, I still would tell myself that like, this isn't, you're not going to do this for you. This is so you can help somebody else. This is so you can help somebody else. This is so you can help somebody else. And here we are, and I'm helping. I know just from the times that I've been on different podcasts and on stage, how many people I have helped with just my story, right? And so you got to be willing to go through the things that most people won't if you want the things that most people will never have, right? And so even today, one of the things I realized, because I slowed down personally in my personal production last year, right? And I realized the other day it's because I'm not doing the same stuff I was doing when I started. When I started, I was listening to motivational stuff. I was listening to podcasts. I stopped, right? And even at my level, I can't stop because I'm only going to get this far where I'm at. So if I want to level up again, I got to keep working on this, right? And so, and I keep going. And what's going to happen, guys, as you level up, there's going to be people that can't come with you. And it's going to be friends. It's going to be family members. It's going to be people that you work with. Everybody is not meant to go to your next level. The girl that I was talking about that I lived with, she was at my, like, we were this tight. She was at my son's baby shower. My son just turned 21 2 weeks ago, right? That's how much of friends we were. But she thinks I stole one of her agents and we don't talk anymore. And that's fine. You know what I'm saying? It hurt me, but she can't go where I'm going. And she's still in the practice company. She saw me fall and get back up, and she's still there. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's okay. There's people that can't go where you're supposed to go. So you got to know that and be prepared for that. And when they say success is lonely at the top, that's no BS. Like, it really is. Like, the higher I go, the less people even understand what I'm talking about and where I'm trying to go. Right. And so I've lost friends. I don't have a big family, so it's not a lot of family to lose. But I lost friends. I lost people, even people in business that I have brought over with me to Family First Life. I have a leg of my business. And when we started in Family First Life, we were like this. And we don't even speak anymore. And that's okay, because for whatever reason, we got to a certain point in our friendship. And now he's still a business partner. But at the end of the day, that's where he was supposed to stop, right? And so to answer your bigger question, like, I'm doing a lot of telesales, Marissa. And at first I was just jumping out of the bed at like 15 minutes before I'm supposed to get on the live dials, and I'm like dialing, and I'm half asleep, right? So I had to stop doing that. So now I'm waking up an hour ahead of time. I'm getting dressed, taking a shower, not putting on my makeup, except for your call, because that's only I have makeup now. But doing the things that I would do as if I was leaving the house, so that I'm prepared. So when I sit down in front of my iPad, I'm prepared to get to work, right? And so the mental improvement, that can never stop, guys, because again, it'll only take you to a certain level. And then there's going to be other levels that you need to get to, and you can't be the same person you were to get to level 10 that you need to be to get to level 20, if that makes sense.
Amen. That makes a lot of sense. And you shared a lot there, and thank you for going more into depth, because you spoke on a couple of different things. It's like you mentioned, people, right? And I think that's a hard thing that all of us struggle with. It's like, we have that person or those couple of people in our life that we know maybe aren't that positive or aren't rooting for us, so to say. Or maybe they're just, our habits or our goals aren't really in line anymore, and it's hurting one another. So it's hard to cut those people out of your life, but when you do, like you said, you're leveling up, and it's not just about you, it's not just about me, it's about who are we helping, like you said, like, help somebody else. And I love that you were able to tell yourself that, because it's like you didn't focus on poor me.
Oh, I definitely did, but
you didn't stay there though. You didn't stay there, right? You were like, poor me, but I got some people I got to help, right?
Yeah.
It went back and forth, and I'm sure it's not easy, right? I know it's not easy for me, just generally speaking, but I'm sure that process wasn't easy, that you're going back, you're going forward, right?
No.
But the fact that help somebody else was what really kind of just pushed you to keep going and going and going, and you didn't make it about you. I feel like that's why you're seeing so much success, because you actually truly care about other people, not just how's Callie doing today, right?
Yep.
So I love that about you. And also just being prepared to go to work, right? Like, like you just mentioned, you said, I could get up 5 minutes before, I could roll out of bed, I can, do telesales, and nobody got to know what I look like, right? Really, like it's not that deep. But at the same time, you're like, if I get up, I get ready, and I, shower, I do my thing, like as if I'm going to leave the house, your mindset automatically is going to shift, right? Without us even knowing it, because that's what you did when you're going out and you're going in the field, right? Like
Right.
same motion, right? So your mind is following it. I love that. And being able to stay, somewhat positive, or even just being able to move forward out of that tough situation. That's a beautiful story, Kelly. So thank you for sharing. And if you guys, think about it, we all have mindset, confidence issues, whatever you want to call them. We can call them anything, right? We go to therapy, we don't, we think we should, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter, because you control your mind. Whatever your biggest thought is, it's what's gonna come, right? If you think like, oh, this is really hard, it's gonna be so hard every day. If you think, hey, this is hard, but I can do it, I'm up for a challenge, like, you got it, it's done, right? So whatever you think in your mind is what's gonna happen. And that's huge, Kelly. So thank you for sharing that. Now, kind of moving fast forward, I know you're doing a lot of telesales now, which is awesome. But you are in a lot of homes, right?
Yeah. That's
And
why I chose to do telesales. I'm like, I've been over 10 years. I've been in a whole lot of homes. So yeah.
I was gonna say, so over your insurance experience, you've met a lot of people, you've seen a lot of things, I can imagine, because I know I have. So when you go into a home, how do you set the stage, or even on a telesale, whatever it might be, how are you setting the stage to make sure that the client knows what's going on, and why is that kind of important?
Well, I'll talk about most people, what are most people on your call? Are you guys, raise your hand if you're doing in-home.
It's like probably about 50-50.
50-50, okay. So really I'm focused on, why do they fill the form out? Like, who are you trying to get taken care of? Like, who don't you want to leave a burden on? I talk about I always bring my father up, and I'll say, I was working with a different insurance company, and then my father couldn't get coverage with them. And 2 years ago, my father died with no life insurance. And that was a burden on me and my sisters. Like, we had a hard time trying to come up with $5,000. And I'll say, like, even though I wasn't doing that well, I'm like, we're all doing, sorry.
It's okay.
We're all doing pretty well for ourselves, and we had a hard time coming up with $5,000. So what does that look like for your children, your siblings, or whoever they say? Sorry. Okay. Whoever they say is important to them. Hold on, let me text. This is an agent. Let me tell her to call the hotline real quick. Sorry, y'all.
It's okay. You're good.
Okay. And I'm speaking. So, what I'm saying, really honing in on the why, what I'm saying, and then bring it in. It may not be your personal story, but someone else's story, right? About, what I'm saying, if you don't have your own, because I didn't have a story up until 2019, what I'm saying? Like, my mom passed away, I was 19 years old. So I don't even know how that even went, right? But my real life story, like what I had experienced in, was my father died with no insurance, and I'm talking to my clients about how that felt for me and my sisters. I also have a picture, Marissa, in my little folder. I had my father's obituary in there, right? And so I used to, when I first started, I used to tell, like, I used to always go over it, but like when I open up my book, it's right there, right? So they can see, and then so they'll be like, well, who is that right there? And I'm like, that's my father. He died, and I'll take it out and show it to them. But honing in on why why they wanted the insurance or the information, and then having them paint the picture to me about what it would look like if they were to die tomorrow. Not me telling them what it looks like, what it would look like for them. What would it look like, Marissa, for example, Marissa, you said your sister is the person that would be, like, if you died tomorrow, Marissa, who would be here picking up the pieces if you were to pass away tomorrow?
My sister.
Your sister. And then, so is your sister, does she have her own kids, or what's your sister's situation?
No, she doesn't have kids, but she lives 10 states away, so she's pretty far out.
Got you. Okay, so she would need to get here, but do you think it would leave a burden on your sister? Like, how would it be for her financially if you died tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, she does well, but she'd have to take off work, get out here, and never mind the actual cost to it.
Okay, so it sounds like to me, and then do you know how much an average funeral costs, Marissa?
I don't.
Okay, so average today it's about $10,000 to $12,000, at least here in Maryland. And then the inflation over the last year was 7%. So chances are that's what it is today. Tomorrow or a year from now, it might be 15,000, 20,000, right? So let's prepare for not what, right? Because you're probably nothing's gonna happen to you tomorrow. But what if something happens to you a year from now? It sounds like you want your sister to be in a good spot where she doesn't. That's the one thing she doesn't have to worry about.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So just really having them tell, because I didn't tell you anything. I was asking you, except for the end, I was asking questions. And I think
Exactly.
that's the key, and that's probably the hardest thing for a newer agent to really grasp is if you're telling, you're not selling, right? The person that's asking the most questions is the person that's controlling the conversation. So if they're asking you a bunch of questions, you're answering them, they're controlling the whole appointment. But if the more questions you ask, the more ammunition you have. So now Marissa can't come back later on and say, oh, I need to think about it. But Marissa, you told me your sister would have to travel, from Arizona to here, and that's going to be expensive. She has to take off work. And then you told me these things were important. What changed? So now she's told me why it was important to her. I didn't tell her why it was important. Now I'm just spitting back to her what she has already told me.
I love that because you honed in on, on their why while using, your story, so to say. And I always say, like, if you don't have a story, like you said, Callie, like, bring someone else's story into the home with you. There has to be a story we've all heard that we resonate with, that touches us, that we're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, right? And like Callie just did, she didn't say, like, you need insurance. I mean, that's gonna work maybe like one out of, like, I don't know, 20 times if you're telling them. But she asked questions, right? Like, who would be taking care of it? What would it look like, right? Like, does she have kids? Like, would she take to, like, what does that actually look like for your sister to come out here? Okay, now I know why you filled the form out, because you're concerned about your sister. So it's almost like I just sold myself to Callie when she asked the questions. And when you have that part down, Callie, 9 out of 10 times, or I'd say even like 90 out of 100, like, it's a close because you asked the right questions, right? So whoever asks those questions wins. And then putting in your why just gives almost like a layer of, like, hey, I'm a person too, right? Like, I'm also a human being just like you, Bob. So it's also just giving a little bit of, like, a piece, but at the same time, I always say that's the only time I'm telling, is when I'm telling a story about something to resonate with the client. Other than that, asking questions wins. So it sounds like, Callie, you go like who, what, where, when, why, how, like we all kind of learn on this call. So, so that's the beauty of this industry, is the same questions will work, just being willing to ask the questions. So you're new on here, Callie, the first time you asked that question, it probably wasn't that comfortable, right?
No, none of it. Even coming from another company here, like, it was still like I was brand new. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I didn't have final expense and mortgage protection. We had term, and that was it. So like coming here, and I'm like, I remember my first mortgage protection appointment, like my heart was like racing, like I was, and I was like, would you relax, like calm down, what's your problem? And then I get there, and then the guy's like not even letting me in, and then I go and just get back in my car, and then I call Jamie, and Jamie was like, are you still there? And I was like, I left. And she was like, you got to call while you're there. And I was like, oh, because all of this is new, you know what I mean? And it was new to me. So, you know what I'm saying, give yourself, just since I'm talking about it, be patient with yourself, right? Because even if you're new to the company or you're new to insurance, like, you still got to learn how it is done here and how to be successful here. And you're going to fail. Like, that's just what it is. I was listening to Denzel Washington earlier, like a motivational speech, and he was talking about, you're going to fail. Like, don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to. Like, to get to anywhere, you're going to fail to get there, and just know that that's a part of the process. But the person that fails the most is the person that has the most success.
Absolutely. It's because you're failing forward. Like, you have to fail to get forward. I love that. So with that being said, you kind of hit on it a little bit, Kelly. What do you think are the most crucial things that a new agent has to do to see success, fast? Like, what are some non-negotiables? I know there's like a lot of things we could name, but what are a couple of things that you're like, hey, if you don't do this, it ain't gonna work?
You gotta listen to your upline, your manager, whatever you guys call, you know what I'm saying? Like that, because the person ahead of you, only if you're successful, that helps the more successful you are, the more successful they are. So why would the person ahead of you give you any wrong information, especially if you want what they have, right? So obviously, if they've gotten to a certain point and they have something that you want, if you want to be like Marissa, you want to do what Marissa does, right? And so listening to your manager, like listening to everything that they say, you know what I'm saying? Not picking and choosing what you think makes sense, because most likely, if you could get to the financial situation that Marissa was in, you would have done it already, right? And so we come here because we're adults and we already know the answers, and so we don't want to listen to anybody. And so we got these egos and all these things that we don't have as children, and those are getting in the way of you being successful, right? And so your manager has your best interest at heart. And I don't know any manager in the FFL that are going to tell you like, oh, go jump off that bridge. It's some leads down there. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not asking you to do anything crazy. They're not like, go outside and shovel that SHIT and then I'll come out and get you in 8 hours. We're not asking you to do that. We're asking you to call in the home. We're asking you to make sure that you set a certain amount of appointments, but follow the system. And the thing is, the FFL system works. Like, if you follow it, it works. The people that don't have success is because they're not following the system. They're doing what they think works. And again, if what you thought worked, if it worked, you wouldn't be here, most likely. You came here to try to change your life, your family's life, and other people's lives. So follow the people that went ahead of you. Like, that's probably my biggest thing and my biggest pet peeve, because people just, like I said, I'm telling you to go right and you went left. Okay. Like, I can guarantee you results. Like I tell people when they start, I can guarantee you these results, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, I have no guarantees for you.
Absolutely. And I love how you put that, because it's like, anyone can do this if you want to do it. But like you said, you can't pick and choose, like, oh, I think I'll hop on the team call on Thursday, but I think I won't dial. And I think I'll change my whole schedule. And I think that maybe I'll buy a couple of leads. Like, just listen to the person who's stepping in front of you, because like you said, Callie, they've probably already went through that experience or a similar experience of what you're feeling. And also, like, they're just trying to help you. Like, you've probably, I know I have never, we've never brought agents in and we're like, oh, like, we hope they fail. It's like, no, like, we want to see you all win,
Right.
So that's why we're pouring in. That's why we're saying get on the trainings. We're not saying get on the TNL because, like, we're getting paid to endorse it or something. Like, we're saying get on the TNL because you're going to get paid if you get on it, because you're going to get knowledge, right? Like, you're going to pick up knowledge to bring elsewhere. So I think, just listening to your upline, I love that, and just plugging in, right? So with that being said, what are some of the expectations that you set when you have a new agent coming in?
Ooh, that's a good question. So what I talked to the new, because I have a recruiter. So I get involved in the process after they've started contracting, because I want to make sure that they're serious, right? And so I'm talking to them about their schedule. I'm talking to them about their leads, and their lead flow, their lead budget. One of the things I was having a hard time with at first was setting the expectation that you're going to have to buy leads, right? Because that's for most people. I think 60% of people that come to FFL really don't have any money, right? So for me, then I didn't have any when I got here, right? So I'm like, I don't know, but my manager Frank was like, he was like, but you figured it out, and then the right people will figure it out, right? So like I said, when I started, I was doing DoorDash. I was driving. I didn't even have a car. The reason I was driving Lyft is because Lyft has rental cars, and I needed a car. You know what I'm saying? And so I was renting a Lyft car, and Lyft rentals are expensive. You don't even want to know how much I was paying for a rental that I don't even never will have. But I'm doing these things so that I can, and then when I started, Marissa, I didn't mention this earlier, when I first started with Family First, the office was 70 miles one way from me. And I drove to the office twice a week because I knew that I didn't know enough to figure this thing out on my own, and I wasn't going to do it at home, right? And so I drove my Lyft car to Bel Air, Maryland, 70 miles one way in traffic, take me an hour and a half to get to the office one way. And, but it's paid off. And I forgot the question.
No, it's okay. But I do want to hit on that though, because that's huge. Like, when I came from my practice company to here, like you're saying, Kelly, there's different, sometimes we come in from the insurance industry and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, we know everything. And like, I get it, it took me a little while to put my ego to the side, but like, Kelly, you're saying, okay, the right people are going to figure it out, right? Because we're talking about expectations for new agents coming in. And you mentioned the leads aspect. And Frankie saying, the right people are going to figure it out. And it's true, because we're all adults, because if you have an insurance license, you're 18 or older. And Callie's over here talking about how she got a Lyft car to get to her appointments, to get to the office, right? So if you think getting to the office for a second, even if you got to your work spot's location office and there was one person there and they had the door shut and never talked to you, you're in a working environment. You're not at your couch, like my thing, like when I worked from home, years back, I was like, I love to do the laundry, right, Kelly? Everything had to be clean, right? I was like, oh, I gotta wash the blanket I just washed last night. Like, no, I don't. Like, I'm just trying to make a reason what I gotta do. But your mind goes to a different place versus if you're sitting in your house. I don't care where you're sitting. I don't care if you're outside, inside, in your bedroom, in your kitchen, whatever it might be. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it makes it that much harder, right? So the right people will figure out a way to make an investment into their first lead order because they believe in themselves. Just like you, Cal, you believed in yourself enough that you said, if I get to the office and if I can try to figure this thing out there, I think I can do this. Because if you didn't, you would have never got that car, right? You would have been like, I'm good, right? So really kind of just like thinking about the sacrifices that you had right from the jump and how quickly you pulled yourself out of that. And what I do also want to say is you always held yourself so gracefully that I would have never known that was going on. So kudos to
nobody did. Like, no, Frank didn't know. Like, nobody knew any. Like, I told Frank about around March of 2020. I was like, because I had to drive, because he was like, why don't you work full time? Like, and I was like, because I got to drive Lyft on the weekends, right? Because when another part of paying for the Lyft car is that you got to do 20 rides a week, mandatory, to keep the car. So on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, I had to drive Lyft to keep this car. So I'm like, people, like I said, no one knew what I was going through until I finally told Frank. But the crazy part about it, so March 2020 is when COVID really kind of hit, right? But what Lyft did is they took off the 20 ride minimum, and that's what allowed me to go into Family First Life full time, right? And from March, and I was able to move into my own apartment out of my friend's house in June. Like, it didn't take long, 2 months. I was able to, like, 2 full-time months, I changed my situation. And then guys, when I say I got evicted when I was in the other company, like, I didn't get evicted and get to put my stuff in storage. I got evicted where the sheriff knocked on my door and they put my stuff out on the street because I did not have any money for storage. The only thing that I took with me was the stuff that I was able to fit in my car, which was basically like clothes and pictures and some other little odds and ends. And then, like I said, in 2 months, I'm able to move into my own apartment And within maybe 3 or 4 months after that, I furnished my whole apartment in cash. And then since then, and I'm saying this stuff to brag, I just want you guys to understand like how this can change your life completely. And then this was in 2020, last summer, and I got it, and then I was able to get rid of the lift car. I got me a little Hyundai. And then last summer, I moved into a luxury apartment with a rent was double from where I started from the first apartment. And I bought a brand new Lexus. This is in a year and a half, you guys. Like, this is not 10 years later. Like, I have a 2021 Lexus. I live in an apartment building that I got, you know, a key fob to get in my door, brand new apartment building, gym downstairs, pool, grills, all of it, right? I got somebody who comes in and cleans my apartment every 2 weeks. From a year, 2 years ago, guys, where I could not, or 2.5 years ago, where I could not afford, I could only pay $100 a week for my rent. I couldn't pay $400 at once, right? And so if you guys are sleeping on this opportunity, I'm here to tell you this can change your life. And I believe that and everything in me because I've changed my life and I've shown other people how to change theirs and they have, right? And so we think this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not Mary Kay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where you can put a little extra money in your bank account. This is a life-changing business. I went from not being able to buy my son anything for Christmas to now he's on my payroll. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
let's go. I love that.
Like, where else can you go to be like to change your life in such a short period of time? My other company, the guy who started the company, he would be like, this is a 10 to 20 year game plan. Family First Life is not a 10 to 20 year game plan. This is a 1 to 2 year game, a 6 month game plan. Like, you can literally change your life in 6 months here if you follow the system, if you are consistent, and if you're coachable, right?
I love that. Because at the end of the day, you can be everything except consistent, everything except coachable, right? Like, it doesn't work, right? You can do it doesn't matter. And I love how you just brought it up and like how as awful as the situation was that you were in, you persevered and you got through that, right? Like, you got through that adversity. And thinking about the fact that you said, I think like April to June, you were able to pull yourself.
March to June.
That's 3 months, guys. She put out of an awful situation into a beautiful situation. And now, and growing, right? It's like, to be personally, you know, fit, so to say, or personally like feel good about your finances and not have to worry about that. It doesn't take months, weeks, you know, I mean, months or years here. It takes literally weeks. You can have one good day in a month and it can change everything. But it's like, you got to be consistent, because if not, it just falls back. We're not going to go there. My point is, it's not just Callie hopping on saying, hey, I changed my life. It's like, this is what it looks like. When I came to FFL, I had $1,000 in my bank account and I was like, hope this works, you know? And you know, thankfully, you know, it did. So kudos to you. You really, and like you said, for a new agent, schedule, plug in, being coachable, reaching out, right? And just follow the system. Follow what the person, you know, is telling you to do. No one is going to tell you to do something because it ain't going to help you. So there's no reason, like you said, Kelly, this is a 1 to 2 year game plan. This is not a 10 to 30 year game plan. If, you know, we can put our heads down, we can go to work, we can change our lives, not only us, but all the people around us. And I don't even just mean clients. I mean people who are bringing in friends, family that would have never had access necessarily to this opportunity, that would have never known about it if it wasn't for you. So don't sleep on that part either. So with that being said, you just mentioned you have your son on payroll. I love that. Like, I love that. And so my next question would be, how did you start out with staff, and what does your staff look like now? But kind of what did you also learn through that process, Callie?
Oh, Lord. Staff was scary, right? Because now I'm not just responsible for me, I'm responsible for somebody else, right? And so it was a scary prospect to know that somebody else is livelihood is dependent on me. So I started out with an administrative assistant last March. I had one administrative assistant, and we've kind of fluctuated. I went from administrative assistant, and then I went through a few administrative assistants because I'm not the easiest to work for. But I went through administrative assistant, and then I hired my son. Got hired. Marissa. I hired my son last March and the administrative assistant last March. So I actually started out with 2 staff, and that was after the convention, because what I heard at last year's convention was that if you give away, it'll come back to you. And it's crazy because when I started getting staff, like as I said, I was scared to get staff, but that's what convinced me too. And then when there was times when I was in between admins and when I didn't have staff, I started to see my income drop, right? And then as soon as I got staffed again, then my income went back up. So I have 3 now, Marissa. I have admin person, I have a contracted person, and I have a recruiter. And then I'm in the process of hiring another recruiter. So I'll be up to 4 staffs very shortly.
And Callie, would you say, like, because you mentioned in the beginning, you know, like you said, you went through a few admins, and I think that's really normal. And I feel like almost it's like, if we think about this from a business side, it's like, okay, when we think of a W-2 job or a W-2 employee, when they go, they might not be the best fit for that job, right?
No.
Or for us. And that's okay, right? We don't want to just keep them there. So setting the proper expectations in that essence, right? And then also just being able to say, like, we're not working good together, right? You're the employer, you're being forthright, and that might be the most uncomfortable part of getting your first staff. So if you're scared to get your first staff, remember what Callie just said. She laughed and said, I'm not that easy to work with. I think we could all agree, like, I mean, I'm sure we all have our days, is my point, right? So essentially it's like, just hire somebody who you think it might work, right? And put them on a probationary period, have an open and bold conversation with them, but start moving, because big changes are made at big events, right, Callie? Like, you made that change because you came out of a big event where you were like, hey, this is working for everybody else. And then you said when you lost staff, basically the group was going down, but when you had staff, it was going back up. And it's because, where can you focus, right? Now you have more time to spend with clients, with agents, whatever that might be, versus being on hold with, Mutual of Omaha for, an hour and a half. Like, you don't have to do that anymore, which is great. And that makes a lot of sense. You have the admin, contractor, recruiter, and looking for another recruiter. And I really think that we can kind of never have too much staff, right?
No.
And then with that being said, what resources do you or your staff use for recruiting, and how long would you tell a new agent to wait to get started on just recruiting in general?
So it's 2 questions. So the first one is, so she's using my LinkedIn account. She uses a lot of social media. She's on social media as me. So she's making a lot of connections on social media. She's also cold calling, and I don't know where she got it from. She's cold calling a licensed agent list. And her goal, because I know she's cold calling, her goal, she has to hire at least 5 licensed agents a week. And then I forgot the goal, like I said, for her for everything else. But so far since March 1st, she's hired 78 people. And so that there's no way that I could do that by myself, right? And so recruiting, she didn't hire, she recruited 78 people. And so the key is, we know all 78 aren't going to do anything, right? Only 80%, 20% of people do 80% of the work, right? So out of those people, probably really only 10% of people are going to do anything, period. And so we're just putting a lot of people through the system to see what works. You know what I'm saying? And we have some other things that we do in the process to help them through the system. But it's the numbers game. That's the same reason we schedule 30 appointments a week as a full-timer, because we know half are going to hold. And then even out of the half, everybody may not need what we do. You know what I'm saying? So putting the numbers in your favor as far as recruiting is very important. And then the company that I came from, Marissa, I always say I almost kind of had like an unfair advantage. Because the company that we came from, that's all we didn't make no money, but we recruited a lot of people. Like that was the thing. Like, oh, we're excited. The day, guys, that I got evicted, this is crazy to me now that I tell this story. I got evicted on a Thursday morning, and every Thursday we had a opportunity meeting, right? And so because I was a vice president at the time, I was one of the presenters. So Thursday morning I got evicted, and then Thursday night I'm at this meeting talking about how great this company is and how they need to come and work. And I didn't believe it. Like, I don't even know how I made it through that presentation. Right. But I was still selling people on the dream. And at that point, the dream was dying or dead.
Right.
For me,
the dream
right?
became a nightmare at that point, right?
But I'm still pushing through, you know what I'm saying? And so, but hiring, like, don't wait. Like, why would you wait? Like, everybody who I thought would be a good fit for FFL, I told them about it when I started FFL, right? Doesn't mean that they came with me right away, right? Because most of them didn't, right? Most people, because here's another thing that she's doing, and they saw how broke down I was with the other company, so I don't know if I want to follow her, and I don't blame them, you know what I'm saying? But then as people started seeing success, and I'm posting on social media, people started coming back to me, right? So 2 of my VPs came from the other company, but they didn't come with me right away. It was about 6 months when they came over and was like, okay, now because they're starting to see results. And even now, people are still reaching out to me like, I see you're crushing it. I see you're doing your thing over there. And they know I'm not stopping, right? So, but talk to people, talk to everybody, really, right? Talk to the people that you know, because if I was your friend, Marissa, and you started in a business and you're making all this money, you didn't tell me about it, I would be pissed. Like, why you didn't tell me that you, like, what the hell, why you didn't tell me about it, right? And the worst thing anybody can say is no. But no sometimes just means no, right, not right now. Remember, guys, I was told about FFL, and 8 months later is when I came. But what if the guy, Mike Barnes, never even mentioned it to me? I don't know if I would have known about FFL, or if I would have known about it when I did, but it took me 8 months to come around. And those are this is what I'll tell people, Marissa, those are the people that you want, right? Because I had people that were working at the other company and they were loyal to a system and they were broke. So if people are loyal to a system and they're broke, what do you think is going to happen when they get in a system where they're making money? They're not going nowhere, right? Because now, and then I'm the person, or you could be the person that's showing them, like, helping people change their lives. The level of loyalty that you will have from that person, like Corinne Giles, she's one of my vice presidents. Corinne is like people like Corinne loves you. Corinne loves me because I helped change her life, right? So am I worried about Corinne leaving and going to another company? No. You know what I'm saying? Because she's loyal to the system, and she's loyal to me as a person because I helped her. So if you don't tell people, how you going to know? The other day I was getting my eyelashes done, and the lady's like, what do you do for a living? And she's talking to me about what she's doing, and I'm finding a way to talk to her about the business. And she signed up. She told me, I was like, I'm gonna send you a video. Watch the video. If you like it, let me know. If you don't, that's fine too. She texted me this morning, was like, I'm ready to go. But what if I didn't talk to her? Like, so you can't, and then don't think, here's probably my last thing about that, Marissa. Don't think that everybody's in a good spot. Because on Facebook, you can be anybody you want to be on Facebook. You can look like you got it going on. My sister did not know that I was broke when I was at another company. She said, I thought you were doing good because of what I saw on Facebook. I was like, girl, I was dying financially. Like, what? But don't count anybody out either, because that's because you want people who've had some kind of success, right? So like for me, I didn't just start out in FFL and start being like a beast. This is who I've been my entire life. And like I'm sorry, that sounds real braggy, but
you got a lot to brag on. That's okay.
but when I had a job, I always was in a position where I was trying to get to the next level, trying to get promoted. So this is who I am, right? So you can put me in Family First Life, you can put me in any other situation, the results are going to be the same. So and then what if the guy Mike Barnes, if he would have judged me based on she's a regional vice president for the other insurance company, she's probably good, but he took a chance by reaching out to me and saying, hey, you should take a look at this. And thank God that he did, because he did, I'm here today. You know what I'm saying? And so don't exclude anybody. Talk to everybody and let them decide if this is going to work for them or not. And then talk to them immediately, because you may not have any success, but you can talk about, hey, Marissa, she's my manager. She's been here. She's been doing it, right? Sometimes you have to borrow someone else's success until you have your own, right? But don't wait, because the longer you wait, the longer it's going to be to build your business, and the busier you're going to be, right? Because this doesn't get less busy. You get more and more busy, right? So, and then you start building an agency. Like, I really don't have to hire personally, because outside of me, I have other VPs that have their own staff, their own recruiters. So I don't really my business is going to grow whether I'm working, whether I'm on vacation, no matter what I'm doing. I have a real legit business, right? That I decided, Marissa, for Thanksgiving, my birthday's last year happened to fall on Thanksgiving, and I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have no plans. So I was like, I'm going to go to Jamaica for Thanksgiving. Like, I planned it a week ahead of time. And did my money stop? No, because I have an organization, right? Now, I can't just take a year off. I'm not there, but I can take a week off and not worry about what my bank account is going to look like. So start hiring. And if you need help with hiring, you don't have to do it yourself. Get them on the phone with Marissa, listen to what she's saying and how she's introducing the opportunity to somebody else, so that you can learn how to do it yourself going in the future.
100%. And you just hit on a lot of great things. Like, even the whole essence of it might be no today, but it's not always going to be no. Like, how the way I came in, it was no. And then a year later, it was, how do I get started? Right. On LinkedIn, So that's a real thing. And it's about like, hey, this might not be their time right now, but as long as, like, if you're the person who's posting on social media positivity throughout the company, and you're posting that people are looking at you, whether you think they are there or they're not. They are, because they're waiting for you to fall off, or they're waiting for you to be so consistent that they're like, hey, what do you do? And when, hey, what do you do comes about, like, you shoot them the BDM, and you give them the same opportunity that somebody gave you, and then you follow up with them from there. So like you said, there's not a bad time to start hiring. And I think I always say it's selfish if you don't share the opportunity, because you don't know who needs it, and they might need it more than you.
Right? For sure.
Absolutely. So you just kind of hit on this a little bit too, and I want to kind of wrap up with this question, but how did you shift from treating this like a job to treating it like a business? And what does that mean to you? You kind of just hit on that with the by the way, I love the story of you went to Thanksgiving. You went to Jamaica for Thanksgiving, and you decided like a week before, because that sounds like something like I would do. But also, it's just the freedom aspect of it. You weren't like, oh, I hope I can afford this, and I hope I can be okay when I get back. You built and worked so hard that that you're going to be okay financially. And right. I think every person on this call can get themselves there. And like you said, we ain't on the 10-year plan. We're on the 1 to 2 year plan, right? So you just hit on a lot of that, Kelly, but how did you shift from treating this like a job to a business?
When I started going to the office, like when I was like, okay, that was like a conscious decision that I knew I needed to be in the office, because you might be doing laundry. I wasn't doing nothing at home, like, period. So I knew if I went to the office, I'm not there. I can't do the laundry at the office. I'm going to the office to work, right? And so that's all I can do at the office is work, right? So going to the office, setting my schedule, like I have a schedule, right? My schedule, like, and I'm not a morning person, which, you know what I'm saying? I know most people start dial at 7:30. I don't, because I'm not like I feel like I've worked my way to being able to do this, but I start live, like I'm starting now dialing because I'm doing telesales. I'm starting at 9, but a lot of times I'm not done until like 7 or 8. So I'm working like 10 or 11 hours a day doing telesales. So, but I have a schedule. Like I need to be on the live dials. So we have live sales dials that we do. So I need to be on the dials at 9 a.m. Monday, I still go into the office. Tuesday through Thursday, I'm doing telesales. Friday, I'm just starting it this week. Tomorrow, I'm going to be dialing for Saturday. I'm going to go in the field 1 day a week. So I'm going to go in the field to do mortgage protection on Saturdays. So my schedule does not change. And then I don't, like, if I have something, Marissa, like I have a personal appointment on Monday, but it's at 7:30 p.m. after I'm done my work, because if I had a job, I wouldn't be scheduling this appointment in the middle of my day. I would be doing it after work if it's available to be done after work, right? One of my agents yesterday, she was calling me because she was like, I'm gonna be late coming to the office. I got to get an oil change. I was like, call me because we need to talk about your schedule. Because if you had a job, you wouldn't have an oil change at 10 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So you would do your oil change on a Saturday afternoon or in the evening, but you wouldn't do it in the middle of a dial when you're supposed to be actually dialing, right? And so, and then keeping your if you're in the field, you gotta, like, that's no BS, protect your dial time. And a lot of times people, because your family or your friends, they think you're working for yourself, that you don't work for them. So don't get that confused, right? That doesn't mean that you have all this free time. You can take grandma to the doctor. You can take mama to whatever. You don't have, you're at work. So no, I can't help grandma. If grandma needs help after hours, I can help her. But just like if I had a job Monday through Friday, I couldn't take grandma to the doctors in the middle of the day, right? Grandma was getting to the doctor before I started this. That why she needed to still get there. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I'm real. So
I know you mean that's real talk right there. I always say that if you couldn't do it at a W-2, you shouldn't be doing it here.
Right. Somebody said call grandma Uber. You got enough money, send grandma on an Uber to the doctor. You don't have to be the person to take her, right? So but like literally, like if you think about if you had a job, would you be able to do these things? Right. I have a pottery class I like art. So like I have a pottery class, it starts at 6. I can do the pottery class because it starts at 6, but if they had it, I could have done it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I got the freedom and the flexibility to do it, but I'm still not, because I still have to set an example for the agents on my team. Right. And so again, it's not always most of the time it's not about you. It's about who else is watching you. And Marissa said, you don't know who's watching you. Right. So if you were watching you, would you follow you? Ask yourself that question.
I love that. And honestly, that's like the best way to close the call out. If you were watching you, would you follow you? Callie, Somerville. And I love that because it's true. And really what Callie just hit on is get to an office, stick to a schedule, protect your dial time, and make sure your activity is high in the field and in income producing hours. If you had your regular W-2, your 8 to 4, your 9 to 5, whatever it might be, could you do that thing? Could you do that task? If the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing it here. We got to treat it like a business. So Callie, thank you so much for being on with us today. But to close out the call, what are your goals, whether personal, team, to close out 2022?
2022. So we missed it. One of my goals was March this month. One of my big goals is, because before I can get to integrity, we got to get to this. But I will be the first African American female board member in Family First Life. Because we have females, we have males, we got African Americans, but there's not one African American female. So I'm going to be the first African American female in Family First Life. And integrity is on here by the end of the year, but I got a lot of work to do to get to that part. But for sure, the first African American female board member.